Hello, and welcome to an ATG webinar. My name is Kyle Davis. I am one of the Senior Technical Support Specialists here at ATG, and I'm going to be covering some of the CTC troubleshooting steps and frequently asked questions. One of the first things I wanted to discuss in this webinar is downloading and installing the tools. This is one of the questions that we get a lot on support, and also we get a lot of this when clients are wanting to download them and install them. If you have purchased the tools, you can talk to your account rep and they can send you the download links. Otherwise, you can contact support and we will also send you the download links as well. One of the other ways to do this is actually within the software itself. So if you have already downloaded the tools and then you're looking for an update or to get the installer again to download on or install on another computer, if you don't have the download links, again, you can request them from your account rep or from support, but you could also get it from within the Revit software, and then you can go into the tools. You could do this by opening any of the tools in that suite and then clicking on About, and then there will be a button, Download Latest Installer. This is available in any of the suites where you can go to the About, Download Latest Installer, but it also tells you right here what version is already installed. So it says installed suite version and then gives you that number. So if you are looking for an update, you can get this by going in here and doing this, and you can see what version's there. And then when you click the download latest installer, it will then tell you what the latest version installer is. So let's switch over to Revit and actually see this live. So again, if I open any of these tools, click on About, there's the download latest installer. And again, it tells me what version it is. And if I click download latest installer, it'll open up a browser window and it'll come into that particular suite's download. And then it tells you what the latest version is. So here I can see for project suite, the latest is 21.0.3. If I go back into my About dialog version here, you can see that I already have this version installed, which means I do not need to install it again. And if I do try to install it again, instead of it getting a window to shows you how to install it or continue the installation, it'll pop up and ask, do you want to remove it, repair it, instead of installing. Now, if it is an older version, then it will install it and replace this version or the old version with the new version. Now with the download and installation, one of the other things that we get quite a bit on support side is talking about silently installing them. I did cover this in another webinar a while back that we can send a link to you if you're not. Otherwise, you can go to YouTube and go to the ATG channel and search for CTC installs. And I cover that of basically talking about how you can silently install it by running a script that is in the installation and configuration guide, and that will silently install them. However, one of the things with that particular silent install that we get on support for troubleshooting purposes is clients are saying we silently installed the software and all of a sudden it's actually missing from the Revit ribbon versus it being there. And one of the reasons for this is because the newer version was already installed on that machine. And they deployed it, and instead of it installing it, it actually wiped it out. And one way to know this is if you go to the add-in folder. So here I go to the program data, Autodesk, Revit, add-ins, and then the version. You'll see here that it has the CTC BIM Project Suite bundle or Manager Suite, but then there's also the add-in file. And a lot of times when you come into this location, this file is gone, but yet this file up here still exists. But also or both of these are gone, but yet in the control panel, it still shows that it's installed. So again, on that, it's because the deployment was pushed, but yet the suite that was already installed is already the current version. So you don't need to batch push when it's already the latest version. So what you will need to do in that scenario is uninstall it from the control panel and then reinstall it again. This will put the add-in files back and everything should be good. One thing we recommend is inside this folder, this bundle folder for each of the suites, under contents, we scroll down, there is a file here called suite version, and it's a just TXT file. And if you open it in Notepad, it will actually tell you what version is installed on the machine. So you can write a custom script that comes in to this location, looks at this file and tells it what version it is. And then if that version already matches, then you would need to have into the script that it would basically skip the installation so that it doesn't continue. So again, this is a big key when you already have some users maybe that have it installed, or you have some testers or admins that are testing each version, and then it gets pushed out to the masses of the rest of the users. However, the admin has it installed, so it actually uninstalls it. So this would be a good one to do, to have it uninstall or have it skip if the installation is already that version. So again, the keys were that you can download the latest suite installer by getting a link from your rep or from support, or you can go into the software and click download latest suite installer, and that will give you the ability to get the latest versions. On support side, if we are needing to troubleshoot, I'll get into this a little bit later, but if we are needing to troubleshoot, one of the things we ask for is what suite version you have installed. And this will be one of the ways to tell us what version you have installed is to go into the about and then here. We also might tell you to download the latest installer if you have an older version to see if the issue continues. So this will be one way to get that. And speaking of troubleshooting, here's some of the general steps that we recommend for troubleshooting, that if you do contact support, these are going to be some of the questions we will ask you up front, and we'll go from there to continue troubleshooting the particular issue. We will either ask these questions, otherwise if you provide these questions to us ahead of time, we may be able to skip these and move on to more advanced steps or troubleshooting further. If you don't provide these, we're going to go through these to kind of go through a general steps here. The first thing would be just to let us know what the tool name is that you're using or suite, and then also what version of Autodesk software you are running it on. For example, if you're running it on Revit 2019, Revit 20, or Civil, one of those things, you'll let us know what version you're running it on. Then we need a full description of the issue. Is it, you're launching one of the tools and something's happening, or is there an error message? Is it happening on multiple computers? That's one of the biggest ones here, is reproducing. Does it happen on just one computer or all computers? Does it happen on one project? Does it happen on multiple projects? This helps narrow down the particular issue so that we can focus the troubleshooting steps on. Also, is there an error message that pops up? One of the things with error messages, when you get a particular error message, with the CTC tools, there's the small version, and then there is a button at the bottom that says expand. We do recommend to expand that, maybe get a screen capture of it, but there's also a dialog that says, or a button that says copy to clipboard. We would recommend to then copy that and send over to support. And there are multiple ways to contact support once you have this information. You can send it to the email address of support@atgusa.com. But one of the other features is that you can send it by using the contact support button within the tools. So here you have the CTC Software tab, and then there's a contact support button. There's also, when you go into some of these other tools, there is this contact support button here as well. So you click support, it'll open up a website, go to the CTC's website, and then you get to pick the information or specify the information in here. Currently, there's only the descriptions fields, and we recommend to then put in maybe the contents of that copy to clipboard message. You put it in here. And the nice thing about this website here, I'm going to go ahead and close that tab down, is if I click on the contact support button on just the ribbon itself, it does jump to the website. However, it just gives us the version of Revit that you launched this from. So here it says 2021.2, but it doesn't give us the product name, product version, and those sort of things. However, if you launch it from within a tool, so let's say I'm having an issue within Invisibility Advisor. If I click on support and it comes to the website, it's automatically going to have the product name and the product version that you have installed. That's because the contact support button is available for all the suites, so it is possible you have a different version for the manager suite and project suite installed. So the website doesn't pick that up when it sends it to the website. But it still gives us the version, but you have to manually know the product and the product version. So we do recommend, again, to get that from within here. So if you are having an issue, when you do the contact support or hit the about, that will give us the suite version that you have installed. Now, just to make sure up here, you pick the country. Now, we're here in the United States, so we are the exclusive reseller of the tool, so it's going to be sent over to ATG to troubleshoot in the United States. And once it gets sent over to us, we will, on the tech support side, we'll work with you to troubleshoot it more, narrow down the issue, and see how we can help you there. We may ask for files if you did reproduce the issue in a single file. Maybe it's not happening in multiple files. We will then request that file to continue troubleshooting more. Okay. So one of the next things I want to just discuss with this webinar is some of the top issues. I have some top 10 here of the most common ones, but we'll get into a few other ones as well if you have any questions on some or have some of those type of things. So one of the things is one of the biggest ones that we've gotten on support lately, and this can happen with the working from home and working remote type of scenarios if you're transitioning, is when you're opening one of the tools, the dialog box does not show on screen. It kind of acts like it. You click on the tool and it comes up, but yet you don't see it on screen. You may see it within Revit in a kind of a thumbnail or windows. You kind of have an idea that it is there. Revit kind of acts like something's there. If you hit escape, Revit comes back to normal and you can continue. However, the reason for this is sometimes with the disconnecting of monitors or transitioning like that, plugging in different monitors. One of the things with the tools and with Windows is it's remembering the last location it was. So you open the tool, you moved it somewhere, you did something, you close it down, and then you disconnect monitors or do certain tasks, and then you come back in and you try to launch the tool. It's going to go back to where it was. This can happen where it all of a sudden goes off screen. You had a monitor on the left, but you no longer have that monitor there. You've disconnected to go to a meeting or something. It will appear off screen. So there are two ways to handle this. One of them is if you do see it on the Windows taskbar, you can hover over that Revit icon, right-click on the thumbnail for the particular tool, and then click Maximize. This should then bring it back on screen. Then you can click and hold on the top of the dialog box and drag it off of being maximized. do not click restore. This will put it back where it was. So restore will throw it back off on the other monitor that you don't have anymore. So you'll want to do the right click, maximize, and then drag off selection. Drag it off of that maximize. The other way is you can do Alt plus space plus M. This will activate the move functionality where you can then move the window around. And to do this, you do again the Alt plus space plus M. Then you use the arrow keys on your Windows keyboard. And then you can, after you hit the arrow keys just once or twice, you can then use your mouse to drag it around the rest of the time. You don't have to sit there and hold the arrow keys to move it around. You hit the arrow keys once or twice, then you move the arrow, then you move your mouse to move it around. So I wanted to show kind of a little bit about this. So if I launch one of the tools, now I'm not having the issue, but I'll show just what it would do. So let's say that this dialog box appears off screen and I can't see it. So let's say it's like this, and I'm in Revit and I can activate, but I don't see the window anymore. And if I do come here down here to Revit thumbnail, I see there's the tool right there. So I simply just right click, maximize. This is going to bring the tool back on screen. Then I click and hold right here and pull it off. Again, if I do the restore, it's going to go back to where it was, when having the issue. Now, since I wasn't having the issue, I can hit restore and it would come back. But this is a way to get that back, is again to right click, maximize, and then drag it off. The other way is if you do happen to, again, see it off, is you can do the Alt plus space plus M, and then you just bump your arrow keys, and you can see here that the dialog box is moving around. Now, if this was off screen, and you can hold the arrow keys and it will eventually come back on screen, up, down, left, right. But if you then, as soon as you hit those buttons, you can then use your mouse to just drag it around the rest of the way. So let's say this is off screen, and then I do Alt plus space plus M, and then I just bump my arrow key and then move it back on screen. Just once with the arrow key, drag the rest of the way, click, and now it's back on screen. And if I do close it and reopen, the tool will be right back where it was. This is, again, very helpful for when you're disconnecting monitors, you need to bring it back on screen. The other one I recommend too is if you are working on this and you have it open and you know you need to disconnect the monitor, is just drag it back in here in the middle and then it'll work. Another option for this is actually if you come up here to the options of any of the tools, there is a setting in here to remember the size and position of the main window in results window. The benefit of this is if you check it, the tool is going to open up right back in the default center location. The downside of it is it's always going to do that. So if you opened it up, moved it off to another monitor, closed it, and then you open it back up again, it's back in the middle. You have to move it back off screen. So there are the pros and cons to that, but it does give you the option to turn that off so that the next time you launch it, it's going to reset back into the middle. One of the other, number 2 here, is after installing the tools, you try to activate the trial or standalone. However, the option is grayed out. And normally because of this is the reason for that is because the trial was already on this computer before. So you go into the trial and you try to get it again. It's not going to be available because the trial has already been run on the computer. It could have been an older version, then you upgraded to a newer version. However, in that version of Revit or that version of the tools, if it's already been run. The other one is if you are using remote desktop, this does not let you activate a trial or standalone over that remote desktop because it's not supported by CTC. So they do recommend that you be on the computer itself to activate it. Otherwise it won't activate. But if you do activate it while at the computer, and then you go to another location and remote desktop into it, it will work. It's just you can't turn it on while in the remote desktop session. Another one that we've been seeing quite a bit is the family processor button is grayed out. When CTC released the 2021 version of the suites for the BIM Manager Suite, the button was grayed out while you're in a project scenario. However, if you opened a family, the button would become active, and then you can use it. Now, this was a feature that they added into the first releases of the 2021 version. However, the latest release that just came out, they have added it where the button is now active while in a project. However, when you click on it, you're going to get a message that you're in a project. And I'll show this here. So on the CTC Software tab, while in a project, this button would have been grayed out in the previous version. However, in this version, when you pop it up, it will tell you the current document is a project. The add-in only works within a family environment. So you'd have to go into that. In here, speaking of the dialog, this is what I was talking about here with that show details. This will give us the more information here, as well as that copy to clipboard. So again, in the project suite or the manager suite here, in this 21.0.3, that's when the button is now active. In the 21.0.0 and 1 and 2, that button was still gray, but now in this version, it's now active. So if you still have a gray button, I would recommend to download the latest installer. One of the other issues is when trying to activate a standalone version of it, you get an error message that you have reached your activation limit. One of the reasons for this is because the software is already registered on a number of computers that you have licenses for, and you will need to unregister them from those other computers. So if you went to one computer, registered it, then you went to another computer and you get that error message, you need to unregister it from the previous computer in order to free up that license to then register on another computer. And another one about this is we've been seeing is clients are using certain things that affect the computer and what the software uses for the activation. Sometimes if you're changing anything of the computer, that's the biggest one, is you change the hard drive or you change the motherboard or you change the NIC card. That's going to affect the activation because that's what the software is using to register it. So it looks at the hard drive, the MAC address, and those sort of things. And if that changes, that's going to affect the activation. This is mentioned in the installation and configuration guide. So if you're going to make any changes to the hardware, I would recommend to unregister the activation first and then register it again after the changes have been made so that it doesn't affect your activation history. Now, another one that we've been seeing is that affects the hardware or the information is if you're using a dongle or docking station to connect to the network. So in some computers, it doesn't have a network port, so they have to use a little dongle to then plug the network cable into. And then all of a sudden they change that dongle or purchase another one. For some reason that affects the NIC card or the information that the tool goes after. So it thinks it's a new MAC address. CTC is going to be working on something to handle that for maybe in the future, but that is something that can be affecting it. If you do get that activation limit reached, you would be able to contact support. We can work with CTC to grant another activation or have your account rep work with them as well. One of the other ones is network licensing. And a user, there's a couple of ones here I want to get into. This one is you have a network license and users are randomly not able to get a license anymore. There's actually a couple reasons this can happen. One of the most common ones that we've gotten on support side is because your network license expired and a new one needs to be made. And you can check this by going into the license file itself and see if it has an expiration date on it. I want to see if I have my license file here still. And I do not, but yet when you open up the license file, it will tell you the expiration date on it, and then you'll be able to then request a new one. And the reason this happens when that expiration is like, then we get clients that say, well, I renewed. That's fine. However, you need a new license file made after the renewal. Now, typically when the license file, when the renewal happens, someone in your company who contacted about the renewal will get a new license file at that time. Then it needs to be placed on the server and then do a reread restart within the license manager. That's one of the common ones that we get on the support side is we did get a new license file and it has the expiration date, but they forget to put it on the server and reread restart. Now, the other one about the randomly not able to get a license anymore, some of the other ones are they did get a new license file, they did put it on the server, however, it doesn't show up in the portal. Some of the causes for that is we found is the client is using other software that uses the same licensing engine that the CTC tool does. So in those scenarios where you have another set of tools, there are two files that need to be moved over to wherever the other puts its stuff, and that is the CTC_inc.set file and the CTC license file that you get. You take both of those files, you move it to the other tool's location of where it puts its files, and it depends on the tools. You'll have to know what that is. So one way to tell that is if you go into the CTC license manager, or actually not the CTC, it's the Reprise. When you go to the status, it'll actually tell you the location right here, potentially of the files. So you can see mine is saying C program files, CTC software, CTC license server. But you might use another tool that will say something like C program data. Then it'll give another location. So you'll need to put it into that folder. I know one in particular is Trimble, and it goes into the program data, and then there's an RLM folder, and then that's where the license file for the other tool goes. So we take the set file and the license file and move them into that folder. Then when we come into the license manager and do the reread restart, now it will show both license files. And then when you go in here, you'll be able to see both information, not just one. That's a huge one, a common one that we get when, again, you have multiple licenses using the same one. Another one is if you're using the BIM project suite, the Schedule Excel, first time using it or you haven't used it in a while, and you bring it in, the Excel file into Revit. However, it doesn't look quite right. Some of the cells are off or the sizing is not quite right, and no graphic options are coming in. So what we recommend for this is that the default settings is the primary reason for it, especially for those that are using it new, is there is a graphic option setting within Schedule Excel that we need to change. And the recommendations are to preserve cell height and preserve cell width. Those are the best options to use when bringing it in. So let's show that here. If I go into Schedule Excel and go to add, when you're going to add it, you have graphic options. And then right here is the preserve cell width and preserve cell height. By default, it's set to auto fit. And then it's like 1.2 here and 2 here. Those don't work for most of the Excel files because it's not adjusting correctly. So preserve cell width and height are better. However, these options here are good for certain scenarios that you need but preserve cell height and width are the better options because it's going to take exactly what's in the Excel file versus these where it's going to make a change. And then there are other options in here like the cell borders. You know, if all of a sudden you come in and you don't have any of the borders, it could be because you have all line work, no line work turned on, or all grid lines and you're overriding the grid lines. So if it doesn't look right there, check those. There's also the titles, and then down here at the bottom is the auto apply font and color and those sort of things. Now I don't have it on my list here of some of the other big reasons, but one of the other things with Schedule Excel I do want to mention while I was in here is we actually have one that's this use only print area in the worksheet. That's by default checked, and so it's going to use the print area within the Excel file if there is one. If there is no print area, it's going to use the entire worksheet. And we have actually seen on support that when the client comes in here and they grab an Excel file and they go to hit OK, Schedule Excel will lock up or it'll give an error message about it. Even if there is a print area, there's some issue there. So what we recommend in those scenarios is to look at your document and verify what the print area is in that. One of the biggest things that I see on support side is when they do this, excuse me, when they do this and they hit the button, it's going to give an error message about that the print area is too large or something along those lines. And the primary reason for that is because for some reason, the print area got messed up inside the Excel file. And one way to know this is if you open up an Excel file and you click right here, you will see if there's a print area. If there's a print area and you click on it, it's going to highlight those cells. If you hit the drop down and there is not a print area in there, that means there's no print area defined. So what you would want to do then is grab that area, go to page layout, print area, and then say set print area. This will then define that area as just this area. And then also, and the other one is if you look at the scroll bar, you can see how big or small it is. And some Excel files that we've gone into, all of a sudden this scroll bar is super tiny, but yet the data is right here. And there's no print area. And so when you bring this in through Schedule Excel, it is actually reading it, and the Excel is saying there is data down here, even though there's nothing here and that you can't see it. But yet Excel is saying there is still data in here. So that's why the scroll bar is smaller versus this, or you need to set a print area for just this area, or delete all this rows down here, and then it will come in better. All right, another one is if you're using the CTC Hive, you go to the website and it doesn't appear loading. And another portion of this is that if you do then get into the website, you get to the PAL or the project activity logger, you're not seeing any of the data. And the reason for this is one of the biggest ones is when you launch the Hive website, sometimes at first you get this. So I went to the Hive website, but I just get this blank screen. The solution is you simply hit refresh. And then it'll get to the login screen where you can then sign in. And then you should get within the website. For now, this is an issue that we're aware of. We've been working with CTC to look into it. However, hit refresh, you should then be able to log in. Then for the PAL portion of it, if you come into the dashboard, you go to projects and you go to overview, you're not seeing anything in here. And if you go to the projects, you go to the projects area here, maybe this is blank, or maybe you do have stuff here, but yet still nothing is showing. And some of this, the reason for that is the PAL has not been configured correctly. And we can have steps we can send you. You can contact your sales rep or you can contact support, and we can send over a document that goes over the full steps of this. There is portion of it is in the installation guide that comes with this, the Hive download, but we can send you a document that explains it in another way as well. One of the big things is that when you do this is you go to the settings, and there is a download config file here that you need to place in your CTC license file folder. It's under C, program data, CTC, and then licensing. There will be this hive config.json file that you need to download from this website and place in the folder. You also need to install the Hive PAL, which comes with the download. So they're actually right here. There is a download latest installer as well. And then you go to the Hive configuration, you make sure that config file there is there, and then you hit test. And then if it comes back successful, this computer is set up and ready to start collecting data. The other portion of it, again, is within the Hive website, you make sure you create the project and that you map the folder or the project folder correctly. One of the things that we do in here too is that there is this unmapped area. We do recommend that you can come into this area and it'll show you the path of it, which makes it a little easier to know exactly, like here / and then the rest of it. Or if it says BIM 360 and then / and so on. So, and then you can take these unmapped paths, select them, and map them to a project. And then you will start seeing data show up when you go to the dashboard in here to the overview. Data will start showing up over time. After PAL is able to send those information up to the cloud, you'll start getting that data to show. If you have further issues, please contact support@atgusa.com to have a case created, and we'll work with you. Another one is the opening of Revit, and you get external application cannot be run. Some of the reasons for this is sometimes we've seen it with after upgrading the software from one version to another, all of a sudden you get this error message, or you get this error message from the very first install. Some of the common reasons for this is there's something preventing the installation from happening fully. Could be an antivirus or security software. Maybe you need to run the installation as admin, and then it puts the files where it needs to go. However, some of those could not be in play and it wouldn't have an issue, but still the installation had some kind of impact. We recommend to then try, the first step is to do a clean uninstall and reinstall. And to do a clean uninstall is you go into the control panel and you uninstall. Then you go to the C program data CTC folder and you delete the folder common Revit. And then after that, you reinstall. Most of the time that's going to take care of the issue. It was just, again, some files are missing that the installation needs, and we just need to clean it and then install it again. And one of my favorite support cases of the most common is when you launch one of the tools, you get the error message, path is not of a legal form. The reason for this error message is because you're trying to use the tool in a file that you have not saved yet. The most common one is a person will be testing something or testing a scenario, and they will detach from central on the model that they're trying to do with. That's when the error is going to happen, is because in Revit, certain things that are required that the file be saved in order for the API to get information from the file to be able to then do the task. So the most common solution for this, save, and then you're good to go. Again, this is one of my favorite ones because the error message is very vague. It just says if it's of a legal form. However, that's an error message from Revit, so the tools really can't change that message. It just displays it. So if you see that message, just simply save the project and you should be good to go. The last one here, the most common that we get from kind of like IT and other admins, is how do you control the icons from the users? And the solution for this is there is a webinar that I did a while back on this topic where you can control the suite settings. And this will then, as you do the installation, you can batch push out the suite settings to your users, and that will control the ribbon button visibility settings so that the users only see what you want them to see and not see everything. And that is the top 10 most common issues and solutions for that. That will conclude this webinar. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.